Hey guys, my name is Relatable Royalty, and welcome to my first video on YouTube. So what I have for you first today is the game theory, and it's about proving how the Purple Man, among other things, is shown as the killer through the minigames. So, let's begin. I have this base almost word for word off of the wiki that is on the internet for the Five Nights at Freddy series. Alright, so, let's begin. So my first 2 points that I'm going to make are read off of the wiki site for Five Nights at Freddy's 2, the Death Minigames. These games are also noticeable for showing children getting murdered by an unnamed man dubbed by fans as the Purple Man. Not much else is known about these characters, leaving their lore to much speculation. Freddy, with glowing white eyes, walks with a microphone in hand. So point 1 is that the Purple Man has substantial evidence behind his actions to prove that he is, in fact, Phone Guy. This will be explained more later. As for this video, Freddy's glowing eyes might represent that he had already been possessed before the second game. To quote the wiki, the player controls Freddy Fazbear by using the WASD or seems to follow a figure resembling the puppet. Oddly, Freddy Fazbear seems to be missing his hat and bow tie. Maybe the hatless and bow tie-less Freddy was from a previous restaurant, where he was not as well composed as the Freddys from the first 2 games. The same applies to all the other animatronics, such as Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy. Which may also prove 2 more things. The children were killed in a previous location, and there may be a third, earlier timed game in the future. Now you may be saying, but Relatable, there is the bite of 87. You're forgetting it. Now hear me out. Foxy might have waited for an opportune moment, such as Jeremy Fitzgerald checking on the animatronics, to bite him. He may have been possessed much earlier, which would also back up the theory that the animatronics were possessed from a prior restaurant, maybe even as far back as Fredbear's Diner. Touching any of the dead bodies will result in the same thing, the minigame ending with the red static and then taking the player back to the title screen. This will happen when you leave and go in a different direction than the marionette. You will encounter Golden Freddy at random instead, and he will jump scare you and end. While the player is walking, letters can be clearly heard and called out at regular intervals, spelling out "Save them." There are several variations of this minigame in which the player starts out in different rooms, those including the office and parts and service. If touching the bodies crashes the game or sends you static, then maybe that is meant to show you that despite your urge to check on the kids, you can't save them. And if you can't save them, it only makes sense that trying to change the, we can assume, past will cause you to fail. And as for the 5th point, this seems to be irrelevant. No matter what room you spawn in, you're always playing as Freddy nonetheless, and you still always follow the marionette, unless you decide to go in a different direction, in which case you will encounter Golden Freddy at random. Very rarely during this minigame, a purple figure will appear at the end of the room the player has entered. The figure will follow Freddy until coming into contact with him. Blue static instead of red will then cover the screen, flashing the words, "You can't" at the bottom left-hand corner of the screen. The game will then crash. Trying to run away from the Purple Man is useless, as the player is pushed away from the entrance into another room. This is the only minigame that does not feature a jump scare. So I'm just going to say this right now. The 7th point as well. I'm saying that right now, even though it means nothing, so that you don't read into it and try to make something of it. In response to the 6th point I mentioned on the wiki, this goes to prove even more that the Phone Guy equals Purple Man equals killer theory could be correct. When he chases you, the Purple Man in the minigame has a badge, and is holding what suspiciously resembles an 8-bit style phone. He's probably trying to stop you from, quote, saving them. As for my response for point 8, if you recall, there had been multiple news articles throughout both games mentioning the deaths of 4 children who were found inside some suits. I do believe that these are the children that are used in the Give Gifts, Give Life. My 9th point comes into play only a few sentences later in the paragraph. As of, the text on the top of the screen will change to Give Life, and the player must approach each of them again, resulting in the 4 original animatronics' masks appearing on the heads of the children, possibly implying they are being stuffed into animatronic suits. Now, I agree with the theory that the marionette is the head spirit, and the final 5th, or 6th depending on the theory, child of the ones that are murdered by the Purple Man/killer. But he isn't stuffing the others into the suits. That's the killer's job. More likely, the final deceased child is giving each soul a new animatronic body in order to exact revenge on the killer, who I still believe to be the Phone Guy/Purple Man. The very next paragraph in the wiki article is where my 10th point comes into play. It says, all throughout this sequence, multiple letters are called out, and these letters are spelling help them. Now, when you complete this minigame, it will trigger Golden Freddy's jump scare. But if you inspect very closely and record it as it happens, play it frame by frame, and a fifth body of another dead child may be seen in the middle of the room, a single frame before the jump scare. It's almost impossible to see unless you pause and go back. Now, to respond to this, allow me to point out that the final frame before the jump scare is, in fact, a fifth child. It is not all that unrealistic to think that the fifth child, as well as one whose spirit possesses the marionette, were victims of the killer as well. The article only says they found the bodies of 4 missing kids, not the 4 missing kids. The killer might have ran out of suits and hid them elsewhere. Hell, for all we know, he could have killed 11 children, as there's 11 animatronics that try to kill you. Except for Balloon Boy, who just steals your battery so the Foxy can kill you, the douche. You can find my 11th point in the next paragraph, the first one of the Save Him/Give Cake minigame. It says that unlike in the other minigames, this one has a score of 100 points are awarded for each gift given, and in the end there will be a total of 800 points. However, during the Golden Freddy jump scare, it will change to a random number. Some recorded numbers include 3225, 5229, 9225, 6762, and 7226. Now, the numbers don't really mean anything for all I know, and I don't personally believe that, but I'll do some research and update you guys if I do find something in the significance of the numbers. Alright, so in my opinion, this child that is killed in the minigame is the marionette soul. Here's why. 1. The boy or girl is locked out away from the others, as is in the second game, the marionette when he is in his box listening to the music. And 2, when he cries, blue stripes appear on his face. The marionette has the same on his makeup. And as for the purple man, he is the same one as is the one who has a chance of attacking Freddy in the very first minigame. And when the purple man first shows up, what does the child do? That's right, he stops crying. And why wouldn't he? He's sad and alone, and if my phone guy/purple man theory is right, then the kid would have been calmed when he saw a staff member coming toward him. And he cried harder for 2 reasons. 1, he was dying, and 2, he had been betrayed by one of the staff members of a location he loved. Alright guys, I know this video is stretching a little, but don't worry, we only have a few points left to make. And this next one is in the following paragraph when it describes what happens to the child. Quote, "The sad child will turn gray when dead. All the while, letters are called out spelling, save him. And the player begins to move slower and slower. If the player is able to make all the children green at the same time, the player will be unable to move and will be forced to watch the children turn red. When the minigame ends, the puppet will jump scare the player, ending the minigame." Now, as I respond to this, I would like to point out that this even further proves that the marionette is the child that dies in the Give Cake minigame. In both the Foxy Performs minigame, which comes in later, and the Give Gifts Give Life minigame, which came in earlier, you get jump scared by the animatronic the minigame is based on. So we can assume that he does the same here. My 14th point comes to play in the first paragraph describing the Foxy Run minigame. It says in it that all 5 children in the first run appear to be happy, and as well as the second run, with the bottom one offset so that it looks sad due to the black bars in its face. The player is then returned to the curtain area and has to repeat this twice more. On the third playthrough, the purple man who killed the crying child in the Take Cake to the Children minigame is seen standing in the corner of the starting room, smiling as Foxy performs. In this one, when Foxy approaches the children, they seem to be dead, as the first child who died was in the Give Cake minigame. The minigame then ends with Foxy's jump scare. Several images similar to the crying child in the Give Cake to the Children appear as a hallucination in the East Hall in the first game, might I add. The purple man is even more proved to be the phone guy when this occurs. During the, I think, Night 3 phone call in the second game, he says, and I quote, "Did Foxy ever appear down the hallway? No, I was just wondering. He was always my favorite." And in the final performance, the purple man appears. He is also smiling, as if he is enjoying watching the show. On this run also, the children die, which goes even farther to prove that the purple man is the killer, and the phone guy is the purple man. Well, I'm gonna see you guys next time. I'll keep theories coming at you.